I am continually amazed at the brilliant women and men I meet while taping my Inner Circle podcast. So many people with powerful stories that we can all learn from. That said, it is a huge responsibility and a big honor when someone trusts me with their story. And today, yet another gift to pass your way. It's not every day that you get to say that you are having a conversation with the Queen's representative in Alberta. And today I am doing just that as you get to listen in. My guest is Her Honor, the Lieutenant Governor of Alberta. And according to protocol, that is how I have to introduce her. And during this podcast, you will hear me refer to her as Her Honor. It is a huge title that comes with all sorts of responsibilities as well as pomp and ceremony. We will explain that a little bit later. What's really fascinating, though, is her story. A strong female role model with a natural gift as an entrepreneur. She began a business that grew into a successful merchandising and sports marketing firm. Years later, she created a corporate firm, training firm, and then helped found a global business development firm dedicated to connecting companies with business opportunities around the world. Now, in her new role, she plays an extremely important role in government procedures. She has love of sport, of education, of the arts, of community, and is also a tireless advocate of women. It is my pleasure to welcome Her Honor, the Lieutenant Governor of Alberta, Lois Mitchell. I am so thrilled that you are sitting with me today. It's finally happened, and I have to begin by saying that we had such a beautiful conversation at the Valentine's Gala in support of the Edmonton Opera, and you ooze this wisdom, and I almost got distracted with my emceeing duties because I wanted to sit and talk with you.
It's true, Carrie. That's where we met, and with you. And that's where I think that wonderful thing that happens with people when they connect. And for me, it's all about that. It's people I connect with.
On that note, I just want you to recap, if you can. This last week has been extraordinary for you. Tell us about it.
It has been a wonderful week because, again, I've been all over Alberta. And like you, if you've been to these other wonderful cities, and some of them not as big as, we probably go to with an Edmonton, Calgary, because I'm fortunate I'm between Edmonton, Calgary all the time, but I've been twice this week to Red Deer, I've been to Camrose, I've been to Banff, I've been to Lethbridge, and I can tell you I've loved every single visit. And you meet extraordinary people, and that's what Albertans all about.
And so much of your job responsibilities are all about in this role. But before we move forward, I want to go back a little bit. I want to honor your past. Home is Vancouver, correct?
Right. I was born in Vancouver.
Tell me what your upbringing taught you.
Well, my upbringing taught me very strong values and a very, very strict mother. And it was all about values. It was about, for sure, if you had your health, mentally and physically, like if you have health, you better give back. And so from a very early age, I was taught about giving back. Little children that needed someone to help babysit, even I think it was when I was 11 years old, I used to babysit, which is not allowed anymore. And I would do it. She'd say, you don't charge them, you don't have to get paid. That's how I was brought up. I was brought up to give back. And I love doing it. That's the one thing I would tell you. I realized that I got as much pleasure in giving back, but that's a value you're taught, and it stays with you.
I'm so glad that you mentioned that, because that's where the seeds of philanthropy really start at a young age. So brilliant on your mother's part. You ventured off to the University of British Columbia. You're a teacher by trade.
That's right.
Tell me more about that.
Well, again, a lot to do. Believe it or not, my mother and father, my mother, yes, she was a kindergarten teacher. That was good for her. But, I really wanted, and my dad was one of these people that was so sweet. He was so sweet and kind. Whatever I wanted, he wanted. But I would tell you, I really wanted to go into business. I really did. I wanted a business. I wanted to go into commerce. But that wasn't encouraged. And at that time, and don't forget, at my age, it was like teaching or nursing. That's what you did. So, again, to please my mother and father, that's what I went into. I went into teaching. Never, ever will regret it, because I will tell you, teachers are heroes in my eyes.
Mhm.
So a good teacher can do so much for a child. And that was the one thing I will tell you right now. I remember my grade 1 teacher was unbelievably encouraging and said to me, I remember her saying this because I didn't think I was, "You're the best reader." That's where it started,
Oh, my
grade 1 from a
goodness.
teacher.
Yes.
And I had such admiration for teachers. So I was never, ever sorry that I went into it. But that thirst and lust for big business
Mhm.
stayed with me. And so I will tell you, I was fortunate to meet a man through my brother, through my one and only brher, 1 year older. Yes.
Really?
Yes,
Okay,
that's
so
where I
you
met
met Doug at UBC,
Yes,
correct?
Yes.
All right.
Yes, he was in law school, but he played football for 1 year in his first year law school, and he had a wonderful coach who did nothing but encourage him. And he turned professional after 1 year there. He got him, yes, a contract with the
1
BC
year?
Lions. Yes, but I will tell you one thing. My mother only remembers that he was a person that played football. And so and this is after we knew that we were within a month meant to be,
Mhm.
and it was my brother that introduced us. And he'd always wanted me to go out with his friends, and I said, no, your friends don't like sports. So he actually met Doug in Calgary, and Doug said, I'm actually going to come and play football at UBC. It was all through my brother that brought him over to the house. And
He was
yes,
orchestrating
he
that,
orchestrated it. That's where it all began. And so when actually we were getting married, because my mother said, "You're marrying a football player?" I said, no, Mother, he's in law school. It's okay.
So you balanced it with that.
Yes.
But that worked for you because he was an athlete, because you have a huge love of sports.
I do.
Okay, so how many years for you and Doug?
Over 58.
Oh my gosh.
Not bad. My brother did a good job. My brother did a great job.
Well, tell me,
Yeah.
kudos to your brother in that
Mhm.
regard.
Mhm.
58 years of
Mhm.
marriage. You don't hear about that a lot these days. Tell me why you and Doug work.
We work because we have the same values. You have to have the same values. You can be very different in personalities, which we are, but you have to have the same values. You have to care about the same thing. And both of us were brought up, but really money, it wasn't about money. I mean, if it came, that was fine, but it was never the most important thing in our life. And so when you have family is very, very important. It's always been a great value with Doug. But I would tell you that it's more that whole thing about being honest, have integrity. If you say you're going to do something, you do it. And so he and I are very much alike in our values. And you know, I will tell you something. There's nothing wrong if money is a value, especially if you're a financial advisor. You should have that as a value. But if you're not, and that's where we were so much the same and had those same strong values about giving back, because he had a mother and father taught him the same thing.
Wow, you were really aligned from the very beginning.
We were.
So 4 children together?
Right.
So were you continuing to work while you had the kids? How did that all
So
work?
I got pregnant right away, actually on my honeymoon.
No.
Yeah. Much to my
Love
mother's up, she was upset about that too. Everything happened at night, but she said, but that was why we decided, in a way, to move to Calgary. That's how we came here, because Doug was offered articles here, and he asked if I minded leaving Vancouver. And I said, no, because I'm all for new adventure. And I thought how great it was, because I wanted to experience this wonderful city of Calgary, and I knew all about Banff. I hadn't been here a lot, but I knew all about it. So that's where it all started, is that we moved here with nothing. We had nothing.
Oh,
we absolutely had nothing. I think we moved here with a meat tracking book. We couldn't afford a moving van. And we moved here. Yes, we had nothing. And I remember I couldn't give people when they came to the door. Doug was articling. And when you article at one time, you had nothing, absolutely nothing. And that's when I decided to start up with a business then, because I knew I couldn't go back. I had one little child with me, couldn't go back to teaching. So I thought, I'm going to do something from home, which was again my business background.
And I want to dig into that, but before we do, at a time when you had nothing, you're living in a new city. Where did you get your hope from that everything was going to be okay? You had nothing.
No, because it doesn't matter. If you have love, it really doesn't matter what you do. And it doesn't matter where you live either. Because I'll tell you one thing that I really use this and tell everybody. Home, think of it. An acronym for home is harmony of mind expressed. Wherever you go, you can make it work. It doesn't matter where you live. It really doesn't. It's all about that.
That is so strong, and that I'm sure is going to resonate with so many people.
But
listening.
I do remember, seriously, I remember having nothing and not being able to give bottles away. For when you drank the Coke, we had to save them because we had to take them back to the store.
I can't even
So
believe
that first year, we had absolutely nothing.
the way you frame that, though, Your Honor, to say that you had nothing that you couldn't give and help other people. There is that entrepreneurial, but the philanthropic spirit, always there beside you, no matter what stage or phase of life that you were at. So let's talk about that entrepreneurial journey. You said you decided to start your path with a home-based business. What was that? What'd you do?
Oddly enough, and it has a lot to do with Edmonton. Because my husband played football, right? We were a big football family. We'd go to football games. And sometimes if we ever went to the States, there was all these souvenirs to buy. But in Calgary at that time, you only had food to buy. You didn't have, with the Stampeders, there wasn't any sports, any kind of thing you could buy there. So I thought, well, why in the States, anywhere you go, you can buy a souvenir to take home. Let's do souvenirs in the Stampeders. And so that's what I did. I started bringing in the T-shirts. I found out who distributed them. I did all kinds of work on it. But I will tell you, my first venture didn't start with Calgary, the Stampeders. I thought, I know the general manager. He knows my husband. And he said, no, you know what? People only have a certain amount of money and they want to spend it on food. So I said, okay. But that's what I was like. Okay. I happened to have met the general manager up in Edmonton. Eskimos, I'll come up here. Went up here, saw this wonderful man. He goes, oh, I love your idea. And here I am. I didn't know anybody up here. I really didn't accept him. And he said, love your idea. So my first year was with the Edmonton Eskimos selling souvenirs.
Wow. So this has been home. A second home for many years.
That's right. It has, Carrie. That's exactly it. Right? So, by the way, the next year, of course, the general manager phoned me and said, you know what? We've changed our mind. Would you like to come and do souvenirs here?
Well, isn't that funny how that all of a sudden happened? Because he saw your success.
Yes.
How did
But it was more serving the people. It's the people he saw that were happy to be able to buy a shirt. And by the way, Carrie, we all know the biggest fans are the Saskatchewan Roughriders. Yes. And so you better believe that they wanted to be able to buy merchandise, because I bought it all out of the East, all the merchandise. And let me tell you, we did very well. But the best part of it was I hired students to sell it. Yes, I did. I had all these students. And even now I hear from someone that said, you're the one that got me going and I'm now a doctor. Like, I still think it's a great story. All these great students.
It really is. Now, how long did you stay at home working, and did you finally open an office somewhere? How did that all happen?
I would tell you that, yes, I did. I did stay at home. I had 4 children. But this business was pretty successful. And I will say, in 1975, when we had Grey Cup in Calgary, I took over the whole city. I knew enough, because don't forget, I had a lawyer behind me that said to me, okay, because you had to tie up everything. So nobody could buy one single piece of merchandise unless they bought it through me. So you can imagine how lucrative that is.
Brilliant.
Yes, it was brilliant, I'll tell you. But I have to say, I did share that with these wonderful young people that worked with me.
Help them along in their journey.
Yeah.
So your husband's practicing law, and your business is going along great guns.
Yeah, it is for all those years. But at the same time, I was back working with at the U of C. I started doing some teaching there with them. I designed a course called Dress for Success. Way back, and I would tell you, 1970, probably 1976. Designed this course. Yes, Dress for Success.
What were the rules back then?
It was simply not to forget that you get 30 seconds to make a first impression. So what you wear is a non-verbal communication. Mm-hmm. That's what it really is all about.
So back then, what was the dress of the day that you were telling women to wear?
Well, it's like anything. It's whatever you want to say. What do you want to tell people about yourself?
Okay.
It really comes down to that.
It really does.
What do you want to say? Mm-hmm. And that's really why you have to kind of assess. Okay, if this is really one of the strongest forms of nonverbal communication, what is it I want to say with my first impression?
I love the way you phrase that, because it still applies today in all that we do. You used a funny term that I laughed before we started recording, and I said, how did you do it all? You used the term super skirt.
Right.
Tell me more.
Okay, and this is where it came from, because at the time I was doing that, I was volunteering. I volunteered for a great, and it's an international organization, and is extremely, extremely popular, and I shouldn't say popular, it's successful in the United States and even in London, England. I became the president of the Junior League of Calgary. But it was through that, and that you really did, I think, understand how important volunteerism, which was what it was all about. And they invited me to go and take a course in the States. And I came back, and it was really teaching how volunteerism can help get you into a career like your wonderful lady over here. And how good is that? Because it is about that kind of thing. So I had the 4 children, but also was doing, and had the business, and that business one in 1980, I sold it to a man called John Frazzati. Wow. Because then I was doing every single thing that I knew how to tie up things. So I knew that people, I wouldn't let them buy jerseys from anywhere but me. So I'd be delivering them to the locker room. Yes, that's what he had. And that's where we all developed that. So I sold it to him in 1980, the business. But at the same time, I was also the president of the Junior League. That was a wonderful opportunity to really understand about international organizations, but to meet great people, great people.
And I'm on board with what you're saying, but how did you do it?
No, but I didn't though. That's the funny thing is and that's why when I told you, I want to make sure that young women of any age, you don't have to be a super skirt, because guess what? I'm not. I'm a terrible cook. Do you imagine 4 children had to eat food that I did? And so I knew I wasn't that good. I used to do a lot of casseroles, it's true. That's what they remember. However, 3 years ago, before, because I had to give it up, I became an international food judge, the only Canadian that ever became an international food judge. So it's kind of what I say to people, you don't have to be the super skirt and do it all, because actually when people came to my house, they used to bring their muffins and bring their food so they didn't have to eat mine. So it's one of those things, you don't have to do it all, because in a way, why should we be perfect at everything? We can't, but we do our best and we let our light shine where we can. But we let the other people that know how to do it, and that's where I'll tell you, I learned a lot about teamwork.
That is such a beautiful perspective, and you validated many of my feelings, because I'm a horrible cook too. I bake okay, but maybe that is why all my friends do bring food when they come over, and it helps me out a lot, and
Exactly.
I'm completely okay with that. But as you pointed out, as women, we just put such tremendous pressure on ourselves to be able to be moms, to be working full time, to be volunteering, to be out exercising. It's tough. And the possibility for failure is high.
Right. Exactly that. And I think that's the whole thing is, I did learn, that's one thing, because if you do have children, you know, you're just glad when they're asleep at night. You go, I can breathe a sigh of relief. Because my husband remembers all these great things we did. I don't remember them. I just remember being so grateful when they were in bed asleep. That's all I cared about. Safety, that's all that mattered to me.
Oh, your sense of humor. Okay, so you sell your business to John Frazzati, which is enormous. And then what led to your Rainmaker global development? Because was that a need to want to connect companies worldwide? Tell me about that.
No, because first of all, the great thing was that when I decided then to have an office, I was actually doing more kind of human resource work. I decided there were teachers who I knew were like me, but also would be great. That was when there was a lot of phenomenal teachers I met. So for 4 years, I did this kind of work and some training. I was doing some training. I hooked up with a company called McGraw-Hill. And because I'd had the teacher, but I did both. So that is where I started this one business, which was great. And then my husband became commissioner of the Football League, and we had to move to Toronto. But I was able to keep the business going in a smaller way, in the Toronto area, because then I had a lot of training contracts. Because I did a pretty good job, I had to give up placing teachers in the human resource, and there's still one today that says, and she's gone all the way to the top, she says, you placed me here. That's how wonderful it is. Because the one thing I recognize, and I have an intuitive nature about people that can do things, and can do it well. And that's one of my gifts. I've decided I'm very good at assessing people fast.
When did you realize that, and how did you realize that?
I was just asked that downstairs. I think that it's through success. So when you put together teams and you become chairs of things, and that's what I'm saying is you don't have to be, my big philosophy is you don't have to be the smartest one, but if you want to learn, you surround yourself with people who are smarter than you and don't be afraid of it. And so I think that's where I learned intuitively that if you have a value of what you say you do and other people do it, they're the ones I connect with. Because you don't have to have everything written down in a contract anymore. So it's people that say they'll do what they say they'll do. That's where I have a real affinity, and those are the people I started working with.
And your interest spread into so many different areas, as I alluded to in my introduction. I want to bring in your love of sport now, because you did tremendous things for our women's Olympic hockey team in Canada and many other areas of the Olympics. Talk about that and why it was important and how that all came to fruition for you. Because
I was a phys ed teacher, so I will tell you it did start with that. Knowing and understanding how important physical activity is, knowing how important teams are, knowing how important it is to, again, help. And if you know you have a bit of a gift for helping people and organizations, you're going to do it. So I will, in all honesty, I was in Winnipeg and I met, oddly enough, at something there, Bob Nicholson, who happens, of course, to be the Bob Nicholson from, of course, the Edmonton Oilers. So for some reason, Bob said to me, I need you to be a chair, because people know you can chair things. Because again, chairing is all about giving credit to the people, not you, that have the idea. I was always good at saying, this is so-and-so's idea. So he said, I want you to chair this event. And it's the inaugural Women's for the World Under 18 Hockey Championship. Wow. And I said, oh, really? When is that? And he goes, 3 months. And I said, okay, yes. And you know what? We did it. And I said to him, as long as I've got somebody, like I'd met Haley before that. She told me she met me at a fundraiser.
Haley Wickenheiser.
Haley Wickenheiser said, I said, if I could have Haley as my honorary chair, I'll do it. And the big joke was, Bob used to tell because that was when he was head of Hockey Canada, you know that.
Yes.
And so he used to say to his secretary, don't bother making a meeting with them. Whatever they want, give it to them. Yes, just do yes. And so we had a very successful, sold-out event, and that's in Calgary, which was wonderful. But it made me aware of the international importance of hockey. And that was what was great about it, that big eye-opening about this is an important thing. And from there, we just kept going together, doing things, again, that trust. Once you do something and you do it in a fairly, and it can be fun way, then you just keep going, doing things together. So I went on the Hockey Canada Foundation board, only woman there for quite a while. And then I
have to pause you. Only woman there on the Hockey Foundation Canada board.
For a while.
Okay, I need you to empower us as to what that was like and how you found your voice during that time.
You know, I believe that authenticity is a really important trait for women to have. You cannot be, you can't be phony. You have to be who you are. And you can't be afraid to speak your mind. I have learned to temper it a little bit. But, it's one of those things that you have to speak from experience. And, but you also, it has to be that you do it for the right reason. Because if you do everything for the right reason, and it's not about you and you leave your ego, at the door, and don't forget, I've learned that when you go there, you don't try and show you're smart when you're on a board. Okay. If you are smart, you'll give the idea to the chair and say to the chair, have you thought of doing this or doing that? Because it doesn't mean it has to come. And a lot of people forget about that. They get on boards and they want to bring up all these different things, but it isn't really helpful to the whole board. So you don't want to ever waste time as well. So it's one of those things that it was great because it was Canada, and learned a great deal from being on that board, but also learned to be authentic, to be honest. And so you also, if you know your facts, you do you make sure that you do your homework, because that's part of it. You always have to do your homework. Make sure you read everything about the minute, all the minutes, all those things. Know it before you go in.
Were there ever situations or ever a situation you found yourself in that perhaps you were intimidated? I mean, you sat on the biggest boards across Canada and a variety of them, and there was that sort of circumstance. How did you navigate it?
Oddly enough, I didn't feel ever intimidated. I really didn't. That's why, maybe that's your stupidity. I don't know. And so I never really felt intimidated. I will tell you one thing though. I do feel having a sense of humor and being able to laugh at yourself is pretty important. Yeah. It's one thing that men do a lot of. I mean, they do like it. So you, can take them seriously, but if your sense of humor is more about don't take yourself too seriously, then it works a lot better. And if you can let them know that you don't think you know everything, and you can say, well, this, but at the same time, you show that you know what you're talking about. That's what makes a difference. Because it's all about gaining respect. Yeah. That's where it all comes from. I'm a huge thing about gaining respect. And where does respect come from? It comes from trust. So my big thing is trust and teamwork. That's what I've always lived by, and I think that it's how I will continue to live by.
When you were doing all of this board work and working with Hockey Canada and beyond, was your husband the commissioner of the CFL? And how was it not like you two were two ships passing in the night with how busy your schedule was? How did you
well, I will say that a lot of Hockey Canada was out of Calgary. But Doug was there from 1984 to 89. I stayed an extra year because of our son, who was in his last year of high school. So I kept working until then. But then we moved back to Calgary, and that's when I started taking on, more, I'll put it this way, a lot more in like chairing certain things. I did. Okay. So when we came back, but it was great because you still have that love of Toronto, and that's what made me wish that everybody could go and live in different places, because I have a huge respect for Toronto and what it stands for. So it's one of those great experiences. It was good for my kids too. Good for them.
When did the arts start to play a huge role in your life? Because you're so passionate about them.
Well, I will put it this way. I became the chair of the Philharmonic, right? And so when I came back, so that's starting in 1991, I went on the board and I ended up being the chair of the board. Mm-hmm. Through being chair of the board of the Philharmonic, because that's a big budget. That's a big budget you're in charge of. But again, I am no musician. I appreciate so much. Mm-hmm. And I have a friend over here, Janet, that she is a musician. But I have great, great respect for those musicians. And I'll tell you what I learned. This is why I did do a lot with the musicians, because I wanted to, and the conductor. And I'll never forget where it taught me. Imagine if you're in an orchestra and you have to sit next to that person for a long, long time, and in rehearsal, you better have some respect or like for them, because nobody does that in a business situation. And so I learned a lot of things, but I learned from these wonderful conductors and maestros. And from that, I think you could say, again, it's like anything. So that would be like 2000. Before I knew it, they asked me on Orchestra Canada board. And then I went on to American Symphony Orchestra League out of New York. That was a great learning for me, I will tell you, because of that, the many years I put into that. What I really learned was, in Canada, sometimes we forget how very wonderful we are, and these great orchestras we have are amazing. And because in the United States, there are some great ones, but we also are great. And the budget, so we were at the tier 2. There was 10 tiers of orchestras. We were at tier 2. Wow. It meant that we did, and we were able to, we did a lot of collaboration with these other wonderful tier 2 that are in the States. And so, I mean, I would tell you that even something like a Montreal Symphony and Toronto, they're like a tier 1. By being on that board, I learned how to go and talk to senators. If you can imagine, in the Russell Building in Washington, D.C., they got me to lobby, and I hear I'm the only Canadian on there. And I went to lobby these two amazing senators at the end because I had a lot of time to learn. Again, look around somebody's office. And his name was Max Backus. And I went around his office for 20 minutes, looked at every single thing on his wall. So when I went to meet with him, and he was extremely powerful, and I went through this thing, and all of a sudden I thought, I better admit this to him. I'm a Canadian. I just want you to know I live in Calgary. Would you ever like to come up there and just get because he's the one that closed the border. Yes, on the meat. They were very, very, people don't understand it, but he said to me, I can't believe it, you're so well versed. I said, I'm well versed about you because I spend all the time looking at beforehand and then looking at everything on your wall. But it's where we establish that trust. And what I loved about the Americans is they did a whole program called No Child Left Behind. They got together, all of the states, and did this. And I love that. And we don't do quite enough of that in Canada yet.
I have to ask this side question. I'm going to digress because I am in awe as you talk about different aspects of your career and your life. How you remember names and times. It's extraordinary. And you meet countless people on a daily basis. Can you share your tricks with us?
First of all, you have to like people. You have to like people. And if you like people, it's a lot easier to really want to know about them, and then you remember about them. But it's part of that. And that can't be phony either. You have to like people. Because I remember, and I'll never forget, when I actually did this thing for the Olympics in '88, I came back when even Doug was commissioner. I used to fly back and do training sessions. And this is what I would say to the people. If you don't believe in the brotherhood of man, get out of this classroom right now. It's not going to work for you. You have to believe in it or not. So it's like anything. If you really believe that people are important, and no matter at what level they are, yes, and you can learn things from them and you enjoy them, it's easy to remember the names. But again, you have to be authentic. It has to be something. That's why people that get certain roles and they don't fit into them, it's sad. Mm-hmm. It's too hard for them. But if you really, really like people and you like to learn from them, it's a lot easier.
You're a lifelong student.
Exactly. That's what I am.
Your Honor, talking about different levels and whatnot, that opens the door to your position here as the Queen's representative in our province. I want to understand what it was like for you, because ultimately the Prime Minister gives you a phone call.
That's right.
And you have been selected by him to take over as Lieutenant Governor. What was it like to receive that phone call? Can you tell me about how you felt?
It's a long process that was in place.
Is it?
And it was a 4-month process. And they do, at that time, it was all checks and balances. So you were totally prepared, I'll tell you.
Okay.
But I will tell you another thing is I've never gone after or sought things. Because I always tell people, if you're really good, other people will talk about you. You don't have to talk about yourself. So I remember saying one of the last conversations I had with this group of people, mm-hmm, you know what? Because they say to you, if you get that phone call, will you take it? They have to be sure. And I go, I will, but you know what? I don't mind if I don't get it. I love my life. Oh. I know you've told me I have to put everything in trust. So it means I have to give up all my boards, all the businesses helping my business partner, yes, and our company. I have to give up everything. And the worst part was I had to give up being an international food judge.
Oh, suddenly you're a foodie.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Yes. I had to give up everything. And so I said, if I don't get it, it doesn't matter. So I just want you to know that. Don't you worry about a thing. I tried to put them at ease.
Oh,
I don't care.
Wow.
And that I did care, of course, if
mm-hmm,
I got it. But if I didn't, it really didn't matter to me. So it was never any lobbying or anything I ever did. So, yes, I said to my husband, I doubt that I'm going to get the phone call.
But you got the phone call.
I got the phone call. Would you come to Ottawa? Would you please come to Ottawa? And that was what was a great day for me. I happened to have had lunch. I had a good friend. I've always been good friends with the U.S. ambassadors, always. Mm-hmm. And they passed that on, get to know this Lois Mitchell. And so I had great lunch with the U.S. ambassador, went over to be with the Prime Minister, mm-hmm, and then he asked if I would accept it. And he's got a great background in sport.
Oh, so
we had a great time talking about hockey, and he pressed a button, and then I went from there, and it didn't matter. I went over to see the Governor General and have a good discussion with him about hockey.
how
Had
that.
a fun time. That was
And
great.
then I don't know where in that timeline you were having tea with the Queen.
No, not at that time. After,
Not yet?
Not yet.
Okay.
Not yet. That's the first thing.
Okay.
That's in, probably end of May kind of thing. And so the installation, I had to wait for the election to be over. So the installation didn't take place till the middle of June, really. And so she was trying to fit it in with her calendar and my calendar, because then I did get really busy. So it was one of those things that it took till a few months. I went up in 2016 when I said it works for me and it works for her. But at the same time, as a trainer, this is what happened. They had asked me, the Princess Charity, so we know Princess Charity, yes, our future king, he is Princess Charities. They asked me if I would come and do a little training with them, because one of the things that Prince Charles cares about is he cares deeply about military people then getting into the workforce.
Okay.
So because I said, they knew I was a facilitator, that's what you really called it at that time.
Okay.
I said, sure, I'm happy to do that. So I went to do this wonderful, and I love doing it, and I guess I was pretty good, because the next thing I know, not only they said, when you come over, you want to fit it in that you get to visit Highgrove with Prince Charles. And that was absolutely magical. And so I went to visit his charities first.
Okay.
Then I went to visit him at Highgrove. And this was about even 4 days before I first actually had the tea with the Queen. But it was magical for me because he's a horticulturalist, and he showed me this wonderful, wonderful garden. And it just so happened that this beautiful woman that was the head gardener, and we're talking about a head gardener with about a number of other people under you, was from Edmonton.
Oh my goodness,
How
what a
good was that?
connection.
It was wonderful.
Okay.
So I got to know her mother when I came back. So that was one of the first things, though, that made it so special for me, that I was able to get involved with his charities, but also to go to Highgrove. And that is very special. And then a couple of days later, I was invited to Westminster Abbey. That was a thrill in itself, because that is a huge Commonwealth, wonderful session that they have with young people, with Malala was there, and it was also with a number of past, believe it or not, prime ministers. So we were there, though, sitting there through the Westminster Abbey service, and then we were taken over afterwards to this wonderful parents' house where we actually then were in a room with 20 people. That's where I realized how special it was, because then the Queen was coming. They said, would you please all stand at attention? And I thought, how amazing. The Queen is coming to visit us right away. So this was before I was having tea with her. And if you could imagine, yes, there I was in a line with these former prime ministers. It was wonderful. And it just so happened a new Secretary General of the Commonwealth, who we got to know. It was a small gathering. She had one to go to afterwards with many other rooms that there were people in. But she came through and she said to me, I'm so looking forward to having our tea with you tomorrow.
Wow.
And the fun thing was then, I was so busy thinking how wonderful that she has done all this, and I'm excited. He came up with her, of course, Prince Philip, and he said, I said, and I'm so pleased to meet you. And I said, I'm the Lieutenant Governor for Alberta, Canada. He goes, I know everything about Alberta and Canada. I'm the royal that has been there more than anybody else. And I said, oh, that is so wonderful. So the funny thing was that we were having tea the next day with her, and the gift I took for her, I said, by the way, this isn't for you. It's for your husband. It's the 3 sisters. I'm giving it to him. He deserves it. And she laughed and laughed about that. She has a great sense of humor.
Just give us a peek into what it was like to sit with her and what you talked about.
Well, to be at Buckingham Palace is wonderful. These beautiful, wonderful little corgi dogs all over. It was like so wonderful and so natural to be with her, because she's so lovely and so gracious and so very smart and so well prepared. I mean, that's the best part, is all of that. It's so easy to talk with her, just like it was with him. a few days before. And I think she was very pleased that I'd had that as well. So it worked out as a beautiful, beautiful afternoon.
Well, let's just jump into your role a bit here. For people who are not familiar listening in the States, they might say, why are you not the Lieutenant Governor, but the Lieutenant Governor? Your Honor, explain.
I will, because this is the most important thing, is that I teach this to school children immediately, because I tell them it's something they can go home and tell their parents, and they can tell their teacher, that because it's the French term, Lieutenant Governor, it's lieutenant in the States. And don't think that many people that introduce me up here don't say Lieutenant Governor. And I really don't say anything, but I realize that I have to do more educating on that, because we are so geared into everything in the United States, and we hear so much, and that's where it's from. So people get confused, but we are Lieutenant Governors.
Yes, you are.
Same spelling.
And it is the same spelling, and that's where I think the confusion comes from. I've heard your position described as a constitutional fire extinguisher. Describe that in your own terms, what that essentially means.
Well, what it really means is there's checks and balances that we, in fact, today at some stage I have to sign, yes, some bills. You are a check and balance about everything, and that's why our parliamentary system works. And this is where there's a little bit of difference, because that's not what they have in the States. So for us, it's all that additional check and balances about democracy and rights. And you would only not sign it if it was illegal. That's the only time you would sign it.
Okay. So you've accomplished so much. So much. What's left on your list of things to do?
No, well, you know what? I do realize I want to be like the Queen. I'm going to keep going. When I finish, well, I will tell you one thing, though. I really believe in this. I've met these wonderful people up in Edmonton, and I did this special thing for a Vimy Ridge contest. Through that,
My son is going to that school.
I love that school, Carrie. That's a wonderful school.
Thank you.
But from that, I met this wonderful man, and his name was Stan Milner, and he looked at my husband and he said, you know, Doug, you're a lawyer, and you should do a foundation for your wife. And I said, no, I don't believe in this. A foundation for the next Lieutenant Governor. Because I also believe you serve your 5 years, but don't be greedy. Be grateful. It's the best job in the world. Don't be greedy. Be happy with your 5 years. But I will tell you, from that I've learned there's so many things I want to do, and I will do, and I will keep going. And my thing is, I'm going to keep going till I'm 100. That's my role. I think, why not? If I've got sound mind and sound health, I'm going to keep going. So, but I do believe that people should never, I was taught that again, don't be greedy. Be grateful for what you have. And I mean, lots of people want to stay on. Of course they do, because it's a wonderful job.
Yes.
But I still feel at the same time, that's being greedy. Let somebody else take it. But there's a foundation, and guess what? You'll be impressed with this, Carrie. I have a wonderful, wonderful man. His name is Ralph Young that chaired it. I met Stan Milner, said, there's your chair the next day. Because of that, this amazing, we've raised $800,000.
Wow.
And we're going to reach $1 million, and I'm going to pass that to the next Lieutenant Governor, so they'll never have to worry about anything.
Brilliant. Congratulations. But I have to ask, why didn't you just want to sit on the beach and put your feet up and have a margarita?
That just isn't me.
It's not? And watch Netflix?
I love to do, no, at nighttime, you know what? I don't ever watch TV during the day. I never have. Ever. So I may turn on for the news, that's it.
Okay.
But I would go, yes, I like a movie on Netflix, I'm not denying it. But I would tell you, no. I could maybe take a day off. No, I'm not a big one to do. And we do go away with our family at Christmas time. That's the fun part where you get rejuvenated. But no, I don't think I could stand doing it. I'm an action-oriented person. Unfortunately, I think for my staff.
All right, so let me leave our listeners with the staff are like, okay, head down, here we go. For all of the women that are listening to this, and you have climbed this ladder in a brilliant and beautiful way, you know, weaving in the arts and weaving in sport and philanthropy into it, what advice do you have for women of all ages that are trying to climb the ladder and find that happiness and find their strengths? What advice do you have for them based on all the successes that you have enjoyed over your life?
Well, I do feel that you have to trust yourself first. you do have that get and cultivate that inner trust, because that's important, because then you'll trust other people. And it's about surrounding yourself. And don't forget, I never will forget who got me where I am. So I'm one of these loyal people as well. Go back and say thank you. Make sure that you include them, because this is all part of it. And I really feel strongly again that if you do good work for the right reason, at the right time, it all works out for you. It will work out. Not always in the timing you want. And that's one thing. Patience is a virtue. I will tell you that right now. So let it flow a bit. I think that's what you have to do. But cultivate those great friendships that you know you can work together, just like my 2 meetings today. Both incredible men. But I know that we have the same values, that we're going to do different and great things together. They're both, that's all I believe in. Not that you don't have to do everything all at once either. It can take your time, but make sure you know one thing: reflection at nighttime. Say to yourself at night, what have I learned? What could I do better? And if you ask yourself that, just take 5 minutes before you go to sleep. Is there anything that I could have done better? Try it.
What a beautiful note to end this conversation on. It has been such a privilege for me to sit down and talk to you in this type of a setting. Thank you so very much for stepping into the inner circle with me today and opening up your life to us. And thank you for all you have given, not only our city, but our entire province and our entire country and beyond. We are so grateful.
Well, thank you, Carrie. It's been a privilege and a labor of love to be with you.
Feelings are mutual.
Okay, thank you.